inside the school that abused its own pupils. Autistic children pushed into so-called calming rooms and locked inside alone. 3 years ago, a box of USB sticks was discovered inside Whitefield, a special school in North London. It contained 500 hours of CCTV showing pupils, many of whom are non-verbal, being abused and neglected.
It's just nuts.
Our 3-year investigation has tracked down the families affected.
Is there any humanity in that video?
And obtained leaked footage and documents revealing what really happened.
I don't think so. They should be getting away with it. Generally, I don't think so.
We found out David was autistic when he was 3 years old. Me and my husband, we just completely lost our words. Like, what are we going to do now? What's going to happen to him?
David's parents were delighted when Whitefield offered a place to their son.
So that it was the school we chose because it had a reputation to be the best one in Europe for autistic children. I trust in the school to look after my son.
To begin with, David enjoyed his time there before he started regularly being placed in the school's so-called calming rooms.
He was always happy, bubbly. Dave was never sad. But he started coming home really upset. But then he couldn't sleep. He would like roll in the bed till 12 o'clock and say, "Mom, I'm really upset. I'm worried they're going to put me in calming room tomorrow."
So the following day I attend the school. And asked him a lot of stuff to show me the calming room because I was expecting to see a sensory room or a room with the sofas, with a nice TV, with, you know, music, books. And it was a cell, even worse than the cell. Small, no water, no food, no light, and no fresh air.
Ricardo noticed a camera in the room and asked to see records and footage of his son's time there. In this report, staff observed David for 3 hours.
Calming room report, David Gloria. 11:17, staff recording David saying, "I don't understand." 11:57, slapping his head. 12:59, eating head with his own hands. 13:13, urinating on the floor, crying. When I saw that the footage, I couldn't believe his torture. I feel it's disgusting. I feel so bad. My son was by himself in that room, in the panic state, crying, self-harm, back then for water, back then to go out, back then for food. And they just ignore him. Yeah, it's not human what they've done with my son.
David, how did that make you feel inside being placed in the rooms?
I was sweaty, I was angry, I was upset. And they don't listen to me, they was ignoring me. They left me to be in the floor.
And what did they use to tell you why they placed you there?
Because I was not sensible, that's why.
So in the beginning, how many days per week you used to go there? In the beginning?
1 day per week.
And then in the end?
5 days per week.
After Ricardo's visit to see the rooms, he demanded that David was never placed there again. But he's since been told by the police that all footage of his son has been destroyed. In April 2024, we were leaked documents detailing the nature of the abuse suffered inside the rooms. Safeguarding investigations revealed that children were pushed into rooms, slammed against doors, and left naked sitting in urine. We've now discovered that a 3-year police investigation into some of the staff ended this summer without any charges. And we've been leaked this CCTV, recorded in the calming rooms up until their closure in 2017. It's evidence that families have spent years waiting to get hold of, to prove the harm that's been caused to their children.
He was diagnosed as autistic and had global developmental delay. He used to love being with adults. I suppose he trusted them.
Lawrence says the calming rooms changed his nephew Ashley beyond all recognition.
He was a very soft, loving boy. not aggressive in any way.
Ashley's family were aware that rooms were used, but they had no idea what the reality really was.
I had this like glorious idea of what a calming room was. It has lights that can be dimmed, and I thought it was like this kind of really special space. I was like, oh my God, wow. I remember my mum dropping him off and she wanted to take him up to the classroom and see the classroom, and they wouldn't let her do that, just to kind of see the environment, because she had a bit of a funny feeling about the place, and just got stopped.
Can I just check you're still happy to...
Yeah, of course.
We showed Lawrence what the rooms actually looked like 7 years after their closure.
First thing is that he looks so young and he's like so small.
Ashley appears in 55 hours of footage, more than any other child.
He's obviously really angry that he's in that room, and then he gets someone's attention through hitting something at the camera, and then they come in and grab him. He must be like saying something, and then the staff just whacks him in the head. It's just nuts. To finally actually then see what it was, I was horrified. If I was put into a room where I was locked in a cupboard, it would just traumatize me.
This safeguarding expert says the CCTV resembles hostage videos.
It is easily the worst footage I've seen. Watching it, it just gets worse as it goes on. What we were seeing in that video is actually a child who vomits and then panics, because whether it's through shame or worry that they're going to get told off. Now that to me suggests, has this happened before? But it's the speed with which he's placed in the room and then vomits. Is that it's psychological distress manifesting in physical harm? Does he have a medical condition? There's a lot of questions here, but what the answer to all of them is, his needs aren't being met. You know, we look at the children, they're being defeated, and how they're responding to that treatment through self-injurious behaviour. It's torture.
Torture.
Look at the imagery of the child, you know, slumped in the corner or in a fetal position, protecting themselves in a padded cell.
There's no toy, there's no blanket, there's nothing. And sometimes we're talking about he's getting there about 9, not before 9. At 9:29, they were already placing him into the camera room.
So at the start of the school day, straight away, they were placing him.
There were times that they were doing that. See? Is there any humanity in that video? Even dogs will not be allowed to be treated like this. Forget about human.
Like many of the children, Halima's son Abdullahi is non-verbal. She says his placement in the rooms changed him in ways she couldn't immediately recognise.
There's a lot of emotion and really of guilt. Maybe I wish if I could understand him. I wish if I could pick the signs and the messages that he was giving me, because you will never know how much it affected him, and nobody will never be able to get those informations out.
Why is it so important that people see this footage?
The truth has to come out fully, and people have to know what happened in there was not right and should not be happening in another place. The damage that they did stays with my son, and I have to be around him, living with that damage the rest of his life, to be honest with you.
Halima feels she's been abandoned to deal with her son's worsening health and violent outbursts towards her.
There are certain things which he would do, which I find it weird, him expecting me kind of to shuffle him away. And I always wonder, why would he turn his back and expect me to do something? Because sometimes he will get so closer that he will expect you to push him away. In the beginning, I haven't seen the videos, I could not say it. But right now I can say, yes, they are really, really related. So there's no way somebody can tell me that is not related to that one. They can tell me a lot of things, but they cannot tell me that's not related.
And you've been forced to live with the consequences?
To pick up the damage that they did. If he becomes upset or he becomes really frustrated, he can let you with black eyes to the ear, to be honest with you. Those are the scratches of that he is giving me. He will dig them so deep because I will have just to hold his hand, just to try and kind of reassure, trying to soothe him.
The videos show children being pushed into so-called calming rooms. Pads used in rugby training were often employed. And although the school's policy said the room should not be used where there is any risk of self-harm, footage shows many were left to injure themselves.
So what's the impact on these children?
There's that immediate physical harm, but in terms of the psychological harm, that's lifelong. Particularly for autistic children, that will have a significant effect on how they are able to develop socially. Their social development is being significantly impaired by the people whose role it is to develop that and to improve that.
Children faced emotional abuse and neglect. Here, this boy's coat is thrown at him. His mum says his behaviour changed after being placed in the rooms. And he became a danger to her other child, a baby, leading to him being placed in a residential home. We've learned that families complained about injuries children returned home with, such as one to the nose of this boy. But this did not lead to investigation, even though footage from the CCTV cameras was available.
Jamie went to Whitefield School when he was 11. From being a happy, smiley boy, wanting to go to school, to not wanting to go to school. Hitting himself and crying at night. I have just seen the footage after all this time. You saw them open the door, push Jamie, just whack him in his back. He went flying on the floor, left in there very, confused, frustrated, knowing he's going to be in there for a long time. His coat and his bag in there with him. So it was calculated that he would be in there until it was time for me to collect him, for him to come home.
Deborah says her son suffered his first ever epileptic episode after being placed in the rooms.
A couple of times I had to go upstairs to the classrooms to take him out where his eyes were rolling. Now, something had stressed him out. He'd been terribly stressed out for that to happen.
Ashley was also badly affected and was sectioned in the years after leaving the school.
Jumping out of moving cars, jumping into lakes in the midst of winter. He's just been on a downward spiral ever since Whitefield. Trauma that he carries on top of his disabilities is just, it means that he can't function. He's not being given any help to recover from that trauma.
A normal boy socializing with family, friends and going everywhere, and it's not the case now. What's happening at Whitefield School destroys my son's future. I feel like powerless. How me as a parent allow a school done to my son for so many years. And I wish I could go back on time and remove my son from the school. Common room, it was a cell, but the only crime David has is special needs.
He's stuffed with mix of antipsychotic medication and ADHD, so nobody will never be able to know, and that really, not only me, that kills everybody, to be honest with you.
Our investigation has learned that the police repeatedly took their evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service, but it was judged not to meet the threshold of child cruelty. And we've also learned of failings at other schools across the UK. One autistic child was placed in this cage, while another pupil was pinned to a beanbag.
Pupils pushed into these rooms, pinned up against walls and left in there for hours, in a school.
It's horrific. Like quite moved, actually. It's not something you expect any child to be in. This is the sort of stuff that you just couldn't imagine would be going on, at all, in any place, really. It should lead to change. There's no question about that now.
Government guidance only says that these rooms need to be used appropriately. Is that satisfactory?
No, we've got to spell it out. The range of change has to be pretty profound now. Clear rules around what cannot happen in calming rooms. And I think in design terms, what should a calming room look like? This is not how any child in Britain should be treated.
The Department for Education says it is looking at ways to strengthen guidance on how calming rooms are used. Flourish Learning Trust, which now runs the school, says new leadership discovered the footage after the rooms had been shut and immediately provided it to the Metropolitan Police. The force says it continues to make wider inquiries, while Waltham Forest Council says it's offered counselling to families. The Crown Prosecution Service declined to comment.
It's unforgivable. The children have been harmed, they have been abused, their mistrust has been degraded, and in many of these cases they are traumatised. It's going to be lifelong support these children will need.
For some reason the CPS wouldn't take it any further, and I don't understand how, considering what you see on the footage and the amount of other kids that it's happened to as well. I just think it's a cover-up from higher up, because I don't see how they could get away with this level of abuse of these children and no one's accountable for it.
The law has to change, because if I did that, the social services, the police will be here and they will take away Abdullahi. But they did that and they can just get away with it. There's no justice in this case.
The BBC has spoken to 17 of the 39 families affected by seclusion at Whitefield. They told us that years have been wasted which could have been spent addressing the harm caused to their children. They say they'll be living with the consequences of seclusion for the rest of their lives.